Great. Well, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us in the first live session of the Design Studio 2018. Wonderful to have you with us. I know that this first week has been an organizing week. We're still got a couple of proposed case studies today, and I'm secretly hoping that there won't be any more coming in because I think we have some great ones to choose from at this time. This first live session will be, of course, an orientation piece to let people know how we're going to proceed in setting up the design groups. There will be 4 or 5 people assigned to each group, and there will be a process, as you will explain a little bit more about each of the design case studies that we have received, and how you can go ahead and selecting your first, second, and third choice. So, Ezio, I'll turn this over to you. I'm sorry, my camera is not working with us, so I can't put on my video. If anybody would like to put on their video, of course they can. Oh, I see. It's listed as 7 p.m. start. 7 p.m. in South Africa. It should really
South Africa, which is 1900 hours. Yeah.
And that should be 6 in London, right, Ezio?
I think it's -1 because of the daylight saving. I think it's GMT -1.
Right. So
plus one GMT +1.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Sonia. I hope that that's not a confusing issue for some people. But anyway, even though I was saying I cannot turn on my camera, it's unwilling to operate. So there must be something going on with the connections. But we do have the chat box and our microphones. So we'll proceed with that. And what you see up there right now is a slide of the beginning of a little presentation that Ezio will do. I'll turn things over to Ezio now. Thank you, Ez.
Thank you, Gio, and welcome everyone to the 2018 Design Studio Dimension. So just the first slide encapsulates the 4 dimensions and how we start pulling it all together through the Design Studio Dimension. Going through to the second slide, this is perhaps one of the most important slides of the whole dimension. In a snapshot, you see a summary of all the various modules within each dimension that you've already done through the JEDS course thus far. But how do we start integrating all these modules together, and so that we can tackle specific case studies in a design team type of effort? So the format I've put the 4 dimensions together more or less is the structure of a strategic framework. Now, if you look at a strategic framework, it normally has a vision statement, a mission or values, some overarching objectives, and then the more tangible kind of key performance indicators and outputs from the strategic plan. Now, if we look at what the 4 dimensions actually provide in terms of a strategic framework for a typical eco-village development or urban renewal project or whatever, my opinion is that the worldview dimension, with its worldview perspectives, respecting nature's resources, stories of transformation, celebration of rituals, and engaged spirituality, the ingredients of this dimension pretty much put together the vision for the overall project. So the vision is a statement that encapsulates the overall objective of the entire community or the entire project. Then moving leftwards in the slide, you see the social dimension. So just recall what you went through in the social dimension. Module 1 was finding a common vision. Module 2, we dealt with community governance. Module 3 was all about leadership. Module 4 was the community celebrations. Module 5 was the bioregional analysis. Now, the social dimension pretty much puts together the mission and values of a project. And this underpins the overall vision by elaborating with a broader mission statement and supporting values. So you can see how the worldview and social view start interacting with each other. Then similarly, as we move left a bit, we start seeing that the mission and values get entrenched in the economic livelihood. So now we turn to the economic dimension, and we see module 1, and we start delving into global local economic impact. Module 2 is all about economic resilience. Module 3 is stakeholder values. Module 4, your social enterprises. And Module 5, your business planning approaches. So the economic dimension pretty much takes the vision and the mission and the underlying values of a particular project or case study example, and provides the overarching objectives for that particular project. So these are usually socioeconomic, cross-cutting objectives which support the mission and values, and they inform the ecological outcomes. So now on the extreme left-hand side, we have the more tangible deliverables, the ecological dimension. Remember, Module 1, we look at climate change resilience. Module 2 is all about water supply design and sanitation. Module 3 is your permaculture design. Module 4 is how can we design something that is carbon neutral. And Module 5 is your green building guidelines. So the ecological outputs, these are the specific outcomes to achieve the overarching objectives. So this is pretty much how generally these case studies are integrated. And pretty much any typical development project out there, this is how you can apply the 4 dimensions of the JEDS. There may be many other permutations around this, but I think this is the general thrust that you'll find that you'll gravitate to. And so as you undertake your design studio and you go through each of these modules, you'll have to apply the case study for each of these modules. So then you're left with 4 columns, 4 almost like standalone inputs from the 4 dimensions. How do you then integrate, synthesize and integrate all this into one common holistic case study? This is how you do it. So this one slide pretty much puts together a very, very high level strategic framework. If you're able to put together the almost like a précis of your project in this format, you can go and pitch this to potential stakeholders, funders. If you're on a recruitment drive for members of a community, this would be your founding document on how to pitch the subject or how to pitch the project. So let's go on to the next slide, and you'll see how this can unravels a bit. So the example 2 that we got at the top there, we've taken this strategic framework, and in hindsight, we've looked at one of the previous design studio case studies, which was for Schloss Glarische in Switzerland. And this is how this framework came up for them. You know, their vision for this particular project was to live as a community, radiating into the world through love, laughter, and honesty, applying and spreading practical approaches to ecological, social, and economic stability. That was underpinned by a set of mission and values that were: our mission is honest and respectful communication to enable trust and closeness among all community members, and a commitment to continuously work towards the implementations of our ecological, social, and economic values. Moving leftwards now for the overarching objectives, their desire there was to transform the energy supply of Schloss Glarische. It's difficulty pronouncing this project, but I hope I've got it right, completely into renewable energies, so basically being carbon neutral. And then to create a social community of such radiance that the seminars and community building are constantly highly booked, coming together at least once a week as the entire community for a common meditation, to align as a group and connect to something higher, and to become a reputable center in Switzerland for ecological competence and education via permaculture courses. And then the more tangible outputs, would be to become carbon neutral, have ecological sanitation in place, make sure they've got rainwater harvesting, green retrofit of buildings, looking at renewable energies, and being food secure. Now, this is one project that has since gone on the Eco-Village map. This case study was done, I think, around about 2012, 2013. And this Eco-Village in Switzerland regularly teaches EDEs every year. I think they do permaculture courses, they do yoga, they do all sorts of other interesting courses. And I can't say they're pretty fully booked. I'm not aware of what their bookings are, but from the website interaction I see every now and again, they seem to be very busy, which is really a good thing. And I think this particular case study gave them a lot of impetus to set things up properly for their particular eco-village. So, as I said, this is a very high level, perhaps simplified version of a strategic framework that ought to go into the executive summary of your eventual case study report. Because if you have to pitch this project to stakeholders, you would basically be presenting your executive summary. So this is just a very good example. We have struggled in subsequent years to try and get students to come close to producing an executive summary in this format. But every year we try, and we seem to get better and better at it. So let's just see what happens this year. If we go to the next slide, this is a slide that you'll recall from the ecological dimension. It just shows how do we start layering together the components of the ecological dimension so that they can in turn start influencing the overarching objectives, the mission and values and vision and so forth. With this integrated approach, you may find that, for example, your module 1 of ecological outputs deals with climate change resilience. Now, climate change resilience might also in turn be part of the founding vision to make sure that your development or your eco-village is resilient. But its foundations for that would come from the ecological outputs. And if we move on a slide, you'll recall the permaculture design process. We're just repeating this here just to emphasize that the various stages in the design process. We're not expecting in these case studies to have a fully detailed design. That normally happens with a lot of effort and a lot of time. At the level that the case study is pitched, we would be happy to take a project to basically stage 2, which is concept design. If you're able to take it further into detailed design, implementation, and whatever, all the better. But don't get bogged down into too many details. The idea being that this case study opens a door and provides a more detailed design brief for how to proceed from stage 2 onwards. Be that as it may, if there are aspects of detailed design that you wish to elevate and refine and put in the case study, all the better. And if it's an existing project that's already being implemented, but it needs a bit of refinement and tweaking, you still need to go through the whole process because you need to design something before you retrofit it and then operate it. So if you've got a retrofit type project, we can nurse you through this process, but the idea is don't go too far down the track and spend too much time on the case study that should be done through subsequent phases. So we need to basically hold back the team not to go too far down into detail, is to make sure that you explore fully at least up to stage 2. If we go to the next slide then, slide 6. So I'm jumping around here a bit.
Sorry, Ezio, that was my fault. I was typing in the wrong place.
Okay. All right. So we've done slide, oh, sorry, we haven't done, yeah, we've done slide 5. Then slide 6. This is something that you may have seen on the online platform, is the proposed time frame. You can see now we At the top there, we're in week number 2 actually. Monday was the 23rd of July. Today is the 26th. So we know that we need to spend at least 2, maybe even 3 weeks. We'll see how it goes to get the case study proposals in, allocate the teams, select the teams, and get everyone up and running. But generally, let's assume that with luck, by the end of the week, we've got everyone assigned to a particular case study. When you start embarking upon, as a team, your case study report, my experience shows that generally you'll start dealing with the more tangible issues, the ecological issues, the economic issues, almost like in a reverse order. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this way. You can start with a worldview that informs the social view, economic view, and ecological view. But given that there's generally a lot more data to collect for the ecological and economic, rather get started with that as to prepare the groundwork. So then what you do then, where you see in week 3, where we've got a 1 there for economic and ecological, what we're stressing there is do module 1 for the economic and ecological, because they kind of tie in together. Module 1 of the ecological is all about the climate change resilience, and module 1 of economic is all about global and local, how to localize your economic activity. And then you start delving into each of the modules. So by the time you get to week 4, you start tackling worldview module 1, social module 1, and so forth as you go along. By the time you've done all 5 modules for each dimension, you're then in a situation where you can review that entire dimension to make sure that it reads well. And then the next step would be, how do you compile and integrate and cross-cut all the modules within all the dimensions? That's something that's often overlooked, and it takes quite a bit of editing, online consultation to make sure that each of the input of the 4 dimensions doesn't stand alone in silos. We need to integrate this whole lot. And we're going to refer you to some of the previous case studies that have been submitted, where this aspect has been covered extremely well. So this is the time frame. If you look at week 2, then it's the first live session on the 26th of July. In 2 weeks' time, we'll have another live session, have some feedback, how's it going, and so forth. The other activities that we want to undertake is that we've normally relied on students to be quite self-organizing, but we feel that Gaia Education needs to take a more dominant role in driving the case study reports together. So the method for doing this is that I would like to sit in on your Skype meetings or Fuse meetings, whatever you do, just as a client-side project manager. So I will not interfere in the creative juices that flow as you put the case study together. I'll sit in the background, monitor your activity, look at your time frames, and provide guidance, to make sure that all the content is covered, and might even give a bit of creativity here and there where required. But I don't want to interfere in how your creative juices flow for each case study. So in this manner, you may start experiencing what is it like to work on a design team for a specific client. In this instance, the client is Gaia Education. And I would be the hands-on project manager, and in turn, I would report to Geo, who is the program director. So this is the type of experience you'll have in a project management scale of a client-side driven project. And then within your design team, you might have your team leader, who is the hands-on project manager, driving the activities, coordinating the minutes, perhaps writing a few notes out of each meeting, and so forth. So we really want to turn this around so that in the event that your students come out of this process you've got a good idea of what it's like to be a project manager on a design team, and also on a client side if you had to drive a project like this. And we would like all the case studies submitted by September the 30th. And even though these timelines seem very ambitious, I think we need to put them out there so that at least we strive towards them. And if we need more time, we can negotiate that. Our doors are not closed by all means for this. Last year, we had 5 case studies. 4 came in on time. Well, 2 on time. The others got a slight extension, but basically we got 4 out of 5. And in previous years, we always had 100% return rate. And last year, we just had some unfortunate incidents on the 1 case study, but it was an invaluable lesson, and I think the lessons are well learned out of that process. I think let's go on to the next slide then. This is the exciting slide. So slide 7, we've received so far 8 case study proposals. We've never been inundated with so many before. It's quite amazing how all these have come in. So this is just an outline. The next couple of slides I'll expand a little bit more detail. But you can see the first one there is utilizing existing structures in eco-village design and looking at manufactured home parks, basically your mobile homes, your trailer homes, how we can add value to these existing type of developments. And Cindy Blackshear is the proponent of this case study. The second one that came along, and these are pretty much the order that we received them in. So number 2 was the Czech Eco-Village Initiative by Leo Krick. And this is the first type of eco-village initiative in the Czech Republic. And the idea there is to give it a bit of impetus. Then we've got Gaia Ashram from Thailand, led by Tom Dieters. We got a Clean City Waste Management Facility in Nepal from Tyler Smith. We've got an eco-community case study design critique from the United Kingdom, submitted by Becky Everill. We've got the 2 case studies from Sylvia de Blasio. The first one is the People's Hub, Regenerators of Urban Eco-Village, and then our Eco-Village Social Enterprise Program. And then the 8th one, La Chacrita de Mala, from Lima, Peru, submitted by Bernardo. And then we've got another one that we think we're still going to receive from Michael Gatto, who's from Austin in the USA. We've put the time zones in there, so you can see more or less where the proponents and team leaders, their time zones are. And the idea is that we're going to populate and upload this template online, so that once you've reviewed and peruse through all the case study proposals, you'll then be able to put your name against the ones that you would prefer. So I'm using the first one as an example. If we look at Cindy, she's the proponent of that first project. I'd expect to see her name there, and that would be her first choice. And then she could well look at the other projects and put a second and a third choice somewhere.
As you, if I may, I've been putting a few notes in the chat regarding this. So just now, Pedro uploaded all the case studies in the folder called Case Study Proposals. Okay. So you can see already in the classroom, you can see all these case studies described to some detail. There's also there a spreadsheet for each student to select their first, second, and third choice. It looks a little different than what you're showing here, but it's the same idea. So students can go in there, put their name in that sheet, and then say their first, second, and third choice case study to work on. So that's already ready to go. And after this session, you can access it.
Okay, that's brilliant. Then let's go on to the next slide, because this is just an overview and we're still expecting the ninth one to come in shortly. Let's just see in a bit more detail what these are about. So I can't actually see who's attending the live session, so I'm just going to give an overview. But if the proponent is actually sitting in the audience and they want to add value, please do so by all means. So let's look at the first one.
Cindy is with us, and so is Leo. And okay. I'm not sure if others right now. Bernardo is also with us, so we have some other people with us.
Okay, that's good. So, you know, please add value where I've fallen short, because this is how we can start sharing and explaining, adding more value to what you see there. I've just provided a very, very succinct outline of the case study, but you would need to download the whole proposal, go through it, and see which ones you gravitate to. So the first one, utilizing existing structures in eco-village design, and specifically looking at manufactured home parks or mobile park homes. So now the thrust of this case study would be to develop an evaluation criteria for judging the suitability of creating an eco-village from an existing property that would take into consideration all of the elements in this list, the dimensions of the Gaia Education, the whole JEDS course, with an eye towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So Cindy has elaborated the challenges involved with mobile park homes and how one could add value to these existing developments just by applying the JEDS course. And I think she's got a couple of these developments in mind that could be refined as the team does its work. Then the second one received is the Czech Eco-Village Initiative, so by Leo. So this case study will provide impetus towards a pioneering eco-village initiative of like-minded people with a goal to create the first fully fledged eco-village in the Czech Republic that can be replicated by other similar developments. And they've got a nice website to explain this whole project. Then the third one received is Gaia Ashram from Thailand. This was Tom Dieters, the proponent. So this case study will provide a holistic plan that will further the vision of Gaia Ashram to be a place where one lives holistically, practices and realizes the interconnectedness and the oneness of all living and non-living beings. They've got a wonderful website. They've been up and running a few years, but now they really want to entrench some of the design plans. So this case study will really put them on the map. They've already been teaching, I think they're currently teaching an EDE at the moment. They also teach permaculture design courses and so forth. Then we got an interesting proposal from Taylor Smith, from Nepal. It's a clean city waste management facility. So this is looking at a clean city social enterprise whose mission is to develop a replicable and sustainable model of waste management, empower locals by creating viable jobs, provide long-lasting solutions to plastic pollution, and similarly, in so doing, protect the local biodiversity. They've got a website that explains it all. This is a very hands-on practical design that would take it at least to stage 2, possibly stage 3. And then from this, they would be able to put meaningful business plans together to actually implement the waste management facility. Then over the page, we've got case study number 5. This is an eco-community case study design critique. This is from Becky Everill. So what's interesting about this project is that the intention is to use the JEDS 4 dimensions approach to critique 1 or 2 planned residential developments. So Becky's already put forward 2 developments that have been planned in her area, but they're not really that as green as what they could be. So the idea there is use the JEDS 4 dimensions in order to influence the refinement of the plans towards a vision for a heart-centered, earth-centered, people-centered, sustainable living and working community that is fully inclusive of people with additional learning needs. The idea here is to provide a design critique. So it's taking the theory, looking at 2 sites and giving them a thorough critique, and then perhaps even going to knock on the developers' doors and say, you guys could be doing a lot better. This is what you could be doing. Then case study number 6. This is the first of 2 from Sylvia. It's the People's Hub, looking at regenerators in an urban eco-village. So this case study will create a blueprint that can be adapted and replicated considering the systemic local needs for how to establish a work-share hub in Surrey, British Columbia, that incorporates all 4 dimensions, creating ethical livelihoods and community economic development at the local level through the regeneration of buildings and revival of blighted urban areas. So there's much need for these type of work-share type hubs for marginalized folk, for folk kind of on the fringes of work, and in so doing one can actually fix up a lot of blighted areas, rehabilitate buildings, and make things more functional. But one uses the 4 dimensions of JEDS to embark upon this. Then Sylvia's other project is looking at an existing site where it's already been doing a lot of training and teaching, but the idea is pretty much similar to Gaia Ashram, but with a different terrain, and it's focusing on the curriculum design, delivery method, and implementation process for how to design a social regenerative entrepreneurial blended program that would offer both insight and online training, coaching and support for those living in eco-village temporarily or permanently. So that's also a very interesting project. Then over the page, we've got the project from Bernardo from Lima, Peru, La Chacrita de Mala. So this case study, there's already an existing learning center, but this case study will refine the site design and teaching delivery of this learning center for transition to a regenerative culture by enhancing its connection and experience with nature through workshops of different themes that will regenerate the human presence on Earth. So this is a really amazing case study proposal. It's in an area that gets about, I still can't believe the statistics here, I think 12 to 15 millimeters of rainfall per annum, and they're still managing to survive. And then the 9th one, I think Michael Gatto will still submit a proposal for consideration. So there we have it. These are the 8 received so far. If we go back to slide 7, this is the summary, which we're hoping you would populate online.
Excuse me, Ezio, I see Alan has his microphone open. I wonder if he wanted to ask a question or anything.
Yeah, no, okay, because I've finished the presentation, so we're open for questions now. Yeah.
Oh, no, okay, he closed his microphone. I think it was just a mistake. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I think I've gone through the whole presentation. Obviously, this is the first session. We're just providing an overview of what it's all about. And in the next couple of sessions, it's mostly receiving your feedback, how you're proceeding, and also my involvement on each team as a client-side project manager. But at this stage, let's put it out there. If there's any questions, any clarifications required.
It's Sonia here. By when do you want our choices?
Gio, what would you suggest? By
well, the files are ready to go. You can read on each one of these. Or, by the way, this whole presentation that Ezio made is also in the classroom, in the bottom of the classroom under additional resources. And the recording of this session will also be posted. So anyway, you can now access each of the case studies, and there is a sheet there where you can put your first, second, and third choice. So we would like to have this done by the weekend so we can start on Monday with formed groups and everything ready to go.
Got it. Thank you.
I think from our experience in previous years, it's sometimes not all that easy to assign students to particular groups. One of the considerations is also the time zones. Obviously, we see where you're drawn to, and also the type of experience that you want to receive during the design process. And then also we want to make sure that, for example, we don't have all the permaculturists in one group and all the social scientists in another group. We need to make sure that we look at the skill set amongst the students and have a very good mix amongst the design team. So even though you put your choices down, we will then also look at the choices and look at the skill set within each team. And if we need to make any major changes, we'll obviously come back and communicate with you and say, you know, are you prepared to compromise A, B, C, or whatever? But we feel it's important to have balanced teams so that the skill set actually carries through the work that's done in the case study.
Is the skill set determined out of the participants' introductions? And if so, then do we want to be putting that, our particular skill sets, into our participant introductions in this design module?
I think that's a good idea. You know, in your introduction, maybe stress where you feel more comfortable.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you neglect the other dimensions. It just means that you focus. You know, ideally we have 4 students per team, because then each team can tackle a dimension. And one of the really outstanding processes from last year was that there was someone took ownership for each dimension, but then the whole team reviewed the work of that particular dimension. So everyone had a say, although one person took ownership and actually writing things down, collating it, editing it, and so forth. And then as a collective, the whole team was responsible for the design integration and the compilation of the document. So that worked quite well as an example. So I think I'm hearing you. In your introduction, you know, start highlighting where you feel most drawn to, so that we can, when we apply our minds to the selection of the teams, we can take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Well, if there are no other questions, this is pretty much what this first live session was planned to be for, is to introduce the process for creating the groups. And as I said in other places, we will try to make the groups be 4 or 5 people, but there may be as little as 3 in some groups, depending how people show up in the classroom. I noticed that 7 participants have not yet entered the classroom, so it's hard to judge where they'll end up. So
maybe, Gio, just to reflect on previous years, what we found, the one year where we didn't have too many students, we had one team just comprising 2 students, and we found that they inevitably took a lot longer to develop the feasibility case study. You know, they went beyond the time frame, which was all right. We nursed them through it, but they succeeded. So it's not to say that we won't get by with small teams. It just means maybe a little bit more work on your side. But one thing that's just blown me away over the past few years is that these case studies just seem to get better and better every year. And I don't know why. It's just the students just rise to the occasion. So we're also hoping to upload examples from previous years, which you really must look at. See how they've compiled the reports, the detail that's gone into it, and the presentation, and and anything else that you notice from that. So I really advise you to look at previous examples, and that sets kind of the standard of where we are at the moment. And I can just say it has got better and better every year. I'm not expecting it to improve from last year because that was a really a terrific standard. But if we can maintain that, I would really be delighted.
Yeah, good. And I want to also make a little point about the importance of the person presenting the proposal to engage the others. If your proposal is chosen to for a design project, then a lot depends on the person presenting it to provide information and to kind of pull the team together to compile the design. So even though it's a privilege to have your proposal selected, it's also a bit extra work for you. I just want to just give you a heads up about that. It's not a huge amount. It depends a lot on what team you end up working with, what the individuals bring to that team.
But don't feel overawed by it. You know, if you're a team leader and you're struggling to coordinate things and drive things, this is where I would come in on the client side, project management, just to tension things up a little bit and remind people of the time frames and, you know, try and get the work done. So you won't be alone. We'll be holding your hand throughout this process.
One more thing I don't want to forget to mention. As the client side, I'll be playing the role of also looking at how the team is working in terms of, do I have a good design team proposal coming from a team that works well together? And I mentioned that because in some cases you may find some difficulties working with your team. If there are any conflicts that arise within the team, as you and I can help moderate, hopefully solve any issues that come up with how much somebody contributes or how often or how available they are. Any issues like that will be here to moderate any conflicts. This is what I want to say. So expect that this is teamwork, and as you know, groups form. The whole process of forming, norming, storming, etc., is probably going to show up in your team. But be aware that that's a normal process, and you're just going through that that process with the others. All right. Well, anything else, Ezio?
No, I'm done. I'm just very excited just seeing these case studies, and I would really like that we can do all of them, but I know that there's only so many students. But let's just see how we gravitate to the smorgasbord that's out there.
Yeah, good. And so I like to make a little round and just hear from everybody if there are any questions or any comments. So let's start with you, Cindy. Do you have clarity? Do you have any comments or questions?
I definitely have clarity on this. I think we've got such guidance here in what Ezio has presented today. I've got a much better feeling about going forward on this. I do have a question about, I guess it would be nice if you could see my face. I do have a question about the immersion portion of the design studio. And my question is, I have visited eco-villages in the past. May I use those in this, or are you encouraging a new visit?
Oh, that's a good question, Cindy. You don't need to make a new visit. Really, the purpose for the immersion paper is to give you the opportunity to be a critical thinker about a real place. And, you know, put yourself in the position of a consultant who's assessing a site for sustainable design. And that's all we're looking for. So if you already been to a place and you can look back and you know, give us some description of what you've seen related to topics in the course, not to other things. We're not looking for other stuff, just related to topics in the course, then that's fine. And the paper should not be very long. 3 to 5 pages is enough.
Great, great.
Sonia, do you have good understanding or any questions or comments to make?
Thank you. Yes, I'm very clear. Really appreciate the presentation and the discussion. Yeah, I feel like I have specific questions about the proposed case studies, and I imagine that those specific questions can be directed to the proponents of those
absolutely.
proposals. Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. Definitely, it's hard to choose.
Great. Well, choosing you must. But in any case, if there are other questions later on, of course, you can always reach Ezio or myself or the person proposing the case study. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm smiling. Thank you.
Great. Nice. Bernardo, do you have clarity or any questions or comments?
Yeah, it's all clarity. Thank you for the real summary. I don't have questions. Thank you for all.
Thank you. And thank you for proposing a case study. It's great. Alan, how about yourself?
I put a question inside the chat module. Other than that, I have clarity. I know which ones I want to 1, 2, 3. So I look forward to working with you all. Thanks.
Okay, great. And I did say something about the immersion process. I have placed 2 studies in the discussion section if you want to have a look. Yeah, okay. So those are in the classroom, the studies that you referred to here?
Yes, they are in the participants' introductions.
Okay.
What do you call it? Yeah, where the introductions are.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, we'll get responses in there. Wonderful. Thank you for that, Alan. Leo, do you have any questions, comments, understanding of the whole process?
Hi, Gio. I think that is quite clear for me. I'm happy that so many proposals just came. Maybe one question I have in my mind, how many projects are you going to choose? Because at this moment we have 9. So, and I know that there are just 5 teams already set. So if it's going to be 5 or it's still not yet set.
We're not quite set on that yet. We have to see how people respond. And personally, I'm looking to have at least 5, maybe 6 projects, but there is a chance that we may run all 9. I'm not sure yet. So I'm sorry to be vague about that, but Ezio and I will take a look at what people respond in their choices.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one at this moment we are just with the Eco Village people. So we are having till the Sunday kind of a session. So this is just kind of a good timing for choosing the project.
Oh, wonderful.
So
Yeah.
that's
okay. Thank you, Leo. Thank you for that. And Nick, how about you? You have understanding or any questions that you would like to pose here?
Just one thing. Hello, everybody. But just one thing I'd like to flag up. The immersion process, I may have some difficulty with in getting to in somewhere because, as you know, I'm out to, for medical reasons, I'm in the UK at the moment, not in Crete, and I may have difficulty getting to a suitable place. I've got several that I'm going to try, but basically because of the travel and it's the holiday season, and there were everybody's moving around the country and everywhere, so everything costs a fortune at the moment. So there may be just a problem with that. I'm trying to find solutions, but there is just that issue. So I think that's the principal one. Oh, there is another one on sort of more on model grounds. Is I do have a real problem. In fact, I won't do it. Is in using Facebook. So I'll use some of the others, but for having spent a lifetime in statistical computing, and I know, and being involved with security, I'm not going anywhere near Facebook and don't advise anyone else. Although my kids use it, but I mean that they go against my advice on that, but then kids do. But the it's the I really have a problem.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that, Nicholas. By the way, Gaia Education does not require you to use Facebook, and it's entirely up to the team how they organize themselves.
Yeah.
In terms of the immersion report, Nick, we can work on that. Communicate with me by email. Tell me your ideas. What do you think you can do?
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
I'm sure we can come up with something, because like I said before, the idea really is for you to exercise a little bit of consulting assessment on a project. So we can.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks for that.
I see that Pia just joined us, and Pia, this is the end of this live session. Actually, we're just concluding. I don't know if you have a particular question that you would like to pose. Welcome to the group, but we are closing, so let me know.
Are you finishing? I thought you started at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, it sounds like there is a bit confusion. It's supposed to be 6 o'clock UK time, so.
Oh, on the website it said 7 p.m. Oh no, I've been here this whole time waiting.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I don't know how that happened. Must be that the no, it says 6 p.m. London in the timeline, but it's possible that it got translated from the location. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, what a shame. Okay.
Yeah. It's always going to be 6 p.m. London time, by the way. So
yeah, I actually did think that, but then when I looked on the website, I saw it had changed to 7, so I just went with it. I'm sorry for the confusion. I'm sorry,
well,
everybody, that I missed out.
No, thank you for making the effort. I'm the one to apologize to you for not being able to make it like you intended. But hey, there will be another time.
And I can rewatch this video, so that's okay.
Absolutely, yes. I see Sonia had her hand raised. Less words, Sonia?
Just quickly, it just dawned on me that in terms of the immersion project, it would be lovely to see like where we're all interested in going. I'd be quite happy to coordinate with someone else on going to an eco-village and doing that as a unit. So just putting that out there for others, maybe like a Google Doc to be created, and when and where. Yeah.
That sounds great, Sonia, and I will leave that for you to take the initiative on it.
Thank you.
You can post in the forum. Obviously, hopefully people will respond there. But any other way, I think it's a great idea to try to get together with others if you can. We are dispersed all over the world, but in some cases, people are in the same location, and that can happen. Yeah.
Great.
And that's it. I saw Heather briefly, but she's gone, and that's it for now. Anything else, Ezio?
No, I'm happy. I'm looking forward to how it's all going to pan out. It's exciting.
Very good. Very good. One last reminder that the presentation that you see on the screen is going to be is already available in the classroom under additional resources, and this whole session will be recorded and posted in the classroom as soon as I can download it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ezio. Wonderful.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.